see each one of you here tonight. We're glad you're here. And Wednesday night's just a special time, isn't it? It's just a different feeling, and just kind of come in and relax from the world for a minute, be with our spiritual family. When I see my name on that list to do the Devo, I start thinking immediately, what would be a good topic? Early last month, I saw a Gospel Minutes, and the title of it was Remember. And that sounded like a pretty good topic, something that we could always work on. And so I spent the holidays with the family listening to a lot of comments and a lot of conversation that started with, "Do you remember?" or "Do you remember when?" And I've got enough material there to last quite a while. But most of it relates with my faux pas, so we're not going to go into much of that. But it is interesting to see how many of those conversations there will be someone that'll say, "I don't remember that." And even if the group does remember it and they start sharing and reminiscing, there will be some differences in details. They just won't remember it exactly the same. A memory is a good memory is a good thing. It's a blessing. We have people like Bill Sis that remember everyone that ever was a member here since the old days. My wife remembers everybody's birthdays and anniversaries and all the critical dates. I fail in that. That's not my thing. I want to look at a couple of Bible examples that talk about memory, that not only tell us things that we should be working on to try to remember, but gives us some helps in how to do that. One Old Testament and one New Testament. If you want to turn with me, the first one's going to be in Joshua. Joshua chapters 3 and 4. And the context here is that the people under Joshua's leadership are gathered on the east bank of the Jordan. They're ready to go into the promised land. And they had stood not in this specific spot, but in a similar situation years before. Remember, Moses sent out spies, and the spies came back, and they didn't think they could do it. They had forgotten about everything that God had done for them, and they did not have the faith then to go in. Here Joshua also sends out some spies. They go into Jericho. They are rescued by a lady named Rahab, and they come back, and their report is in Joshua chapter 2, verse 24. And they said to Joshua, "Truly the Lord has delivered all the land into our hands, for indeed all the inhabitants of the country are faint-hearted because of us." So the people are ready. Joshua sends some commanders out to the people. And in verse 3, they say, "When you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, and the priests and the Levites bearing it, then you shall set out from your place and go after it." The ark is going to lead the people across the river. Verse 6, "Then Joshua spoke to the priests, saying, 'Take up the ark of the covenant and cross over before the people.'" Skip down to verse 13. "And it shall come to pass, as soon as the soles of the feet of the priests who bear the ark of the Lord of all the earth shall rest in the waters of the Jordan, that the waters of the Jordan shall be cut off, the waters that come down from upstream, and they shall stand as a heap." The people are going to carry the ark first into the water. and not just an ordinary, slow-flowing Jordan. We see in another verse that the Jordan is overflowing all its banks. They're carrying that heavy ark into a flood. 16, that the waters which came down from upstream stood still and rose in a heap very far away, so that the waters went down into the sea, the salt sea, failed and were cut off. And the people crossed over opposite Jericho. Then the priest who bore the ark of the covenant of the Lord stood firm on dry ground. Not only was the water stopped, but the land was dry. All of the people then crossed over. Then Joshua received word that he was to choose 12 men. These 12 men were going to go back where the ark stood, pick up a stone, and each one bring it back and set it up as a memorial. Now, these people were headed into major conflicts. They were to occupy a territory where the people didn't like them very much. They were going into battle. But rather than make battle preparations, they were told to remember what the Lord has done for you. Remember what the Lord has done for you. I think that would make a difference in most of our lives if we kept that thought foremost in our mind. The second one, the New Testament example, is one that I'm sure everyone's very familiar with. This do in remembrance of me. 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 24 and 25, where we have the Passover, the Last Supper. Jesus is gathered around with his followers. They're having a meal, and after each of those emblems, he makes the statement, "This do in remembrance of me." We do that every first day of the week. We remember him and what he has done for us. We gather as a body of baptized believers. It's one of the most important things that we do in our first day of the week worship service, is to remember what he did for us. That should be a life-changing experience for all of us. We want to offer an invitation now for all of those, if there are any here that have never put on baptism. This is a good time to do it and join that body of believers. If you have maybe not remembered what God has done for you in your everyday life and you need prayers, it's a good time to do that. If you have any need at all, why don't you come forward now as we stand and sing.